Entitled wife wants me to buy her a robot butler as a reward for going on vacation. My wife, a mother of 2 boys under 5 years old, is currently a stay-at-home mom. She used to work, but after our recent move, she has had to stay home due to a lack of childcare facilities. We hope that this is a temporary situation and will only last until autumn. I work an average of 50 hours a week, including a minimum of 1 or 2 Saturdays a month to make up for our current shortfall in income. Some weeks I work more. I work with cranes, and the work is often dangerous. My wife just got home from a 4-day vacay at the spa with 2 girlfriends. She paid for this trip with her own money, but I should note that this is money the government sends her monthly for the kids. Her friends also chipped in for her, as she could not afford it on her own. The 2 boys have been at their grandma's for these past 4 days, including Saturday, since I had to work. When my wife came home, she exclaimed how hard it is to keep the house clean, and that she would like me to buy her a Roomba. She expects me to pay for at least half, because she says that it's for the house and not specifically for her. She views this the same way as you might view buying a dishwasher. I was glad for her to go away on a trip after being at home alone with the kids for months on end during COVID. She needed a break. But I resent her for asking me to chip in on a robot butler to vacuum the floors when she's at home all day and we are currently on a tight budget that requires me to work loads of overtime. I told her she should save for that instead of spa getaways, if that's where her priorities are. My wife struggles with being a stay-at-home mom and is more used to being a working professional. However, I still feel like it's reasonable to expect someone to keep the house tidy if the other partner is out working 200 hours a month while commuting 45 minutes each way. Am I the jerk? I know kids are messy and it's a lot, but come on, so is my job, and I just go out and do it because it needs to happen if we want to keep our home. I'd like to add that we live in a small 3-story townhouse. She only wants the Roomba for the main floor where the kitchen is, so we would be purchasing a robotic vacuum so that it can clean only a third of the house. You're definitely the jerk. It's ridiculous to say that your wife deserves a vacation, then in the same breath criticize her for not spending that money on a vacuum. Now, I don't intend to go as hard on this original poster as a lot of the comments did. Many commenters asked if he helped out around the house at all. When he said that he spends his evenings after work taking care of the kids, they immediately turned on him and said that doesn't count. Well, if being a stay-at-home mother is a harder job than manual labor, as many of these comments say, then why shouldn't his fathering count as work, just as much as her mothering? No, that's not really the issue here. The issue is that this OP believes dropping $40 on a vacuum is a waste of money if he can just get his wife to do it by hand. And note that the situation is meant to be temporary. She's presumably going back to work once they can find childcare. What happens then? Childcare costs significantly more per week than a Roomba, and at that point you'll have 2 parents struggling to keep the house clean every night while they're both tired from work. When they get to that point, is he going to be comparing how hard their jobs are? This is supposed to be a partnership, and good partners don't lord their jobs over their spouse. He did make an update saying that they intend to get a cheap robot butler, which is a weird thing to call a vacuum that can't even bring you drinks or guard your Batcave, but he's blatantly resentful about it. Ruining your relationship with your wife over a vacuum is as petty as it gets. Even if you feel like you're right, this is a good time to just let yourself be wrong. My naive husband thinks having a disabled daughter means our other children's feelings don't matter. My husband and I are at an impasse, and I think our marriage might be done with. We have 3 children. Joey's 13, Rachel is 12, and Phoebe is 9. Phoebe was born with tetraamelia syndrome, meaning she has no limbs. Despite the fact that she's fairly healthy and is thankfully expected to live a long life, caring for her requires a lot of effort. Our 2 older children have grown to hate Phoebe over the years. They get angry because, as a family, we can't go places that their friends go. Plus, Phoebe simply takes up a lot of our attention. I feel for them, and I wish things were different. I suggested to my husband that we should take turns taking the older 2 children to places they want to go. It's worth noting that absolutely no one is willing to watch Phoebe. We live in a rural area, so it's not like we have a lot of neighbors, and neither of our families will watch her. We can't seem to find a babysitter that isn't related to us either. It's hard finding a caretaker for a child who needs such specialized care. My husband refuses to take my suggestion about taking turns spending time with the kids and insists that we only go out for fun stuff as a family. He thinks doing it any differently wouldn't be fair to our youngest. He told Phoebe about our discussion, and she screamed about it. then refuse to eat for a day. The older two just want to do normal things, like go hiking. And honestly, I do too. I'm tired of our lives revolving around Phoebe. I haven't had a proper break since she was born. I feel like I signed up to be a parent, not a full-time caregiver for the rest of my life. My husband thinks we should prioritize Phoebe's feelings over the others. He says that when our older children move out, they can go do whatever they want. Meanwhile, our family is all Phoebe has. Am I the jerk for wanting to take our older kids out to do things that our youngest can't? There are no jerks here. The commenters seem to really hate Phoebe and think OP should drop her like a hot potato. No offense intended. There's no point in getting into their reasons. Reddit just likes to drop the term golden child any chance they get. But OP's husband isn't just arbitrarily favoring one child over the others. He's worried about his child feeling left out. That's a legitimate concern. Yes, the way he's going about it means that the other children are going to feel left behind instead, but that's clearly not his intention. He's being dismissive of the other children's feelings, but that's coming from a place of empathy for Phoebe, and the fact that she'll never get to have the same experiences as her siblings. One commenter made the very bright suggestion that the solution doesn't have to be as simple as taking the able-bodied children out one weekend and taking Phoebe out the next. Let every individual child have their own alone time with a parent. Instead of pitting the able-bodied against Phoebe, you're simply showing them that everyone is entitled to both their own adventures as well as the ones they go on as a family. And while you're doing that, introduce Phoebe to some interviews with people who share her condition, yet continue to get around on their own and enjoy healthy, active lives. It'll be harder for her than for most, but not necessarily impossible. Caregiver burnout is a very real problem, and it leaves parents of disabled children feeling trapped and resentful. These parents are going to implode if they keep doing it at odds with each other. It's time to find a way to meet in the middle. Narcissist sister-in-law left me in 90-degree heat after surgery, then says I ruined her marriage by telling my brother. I'm 19 and had surgery a couple of days ago to get all 4 of my wisdom teeth out. Because I have a really bad fear of dentists, they had to sedate me pretty hard to do the removal. It wasn't like the laughing gas that wears off really fast, but the actual IV medicine. So I was pretty much unconscious during the whole thing. They told me to have a responsible adult drive me to the appointment and back because the meds they gave me would make it dangerous to drive. My mom was on a work trip and couldn't take me, so I asked my sister-in-law, Bree, if she could do it. I said the whole thing would only take an hour or 2. I even offered her gas money because the dental office is about 45 minutes away. I would have asked my brother, but he works during the day, while Bree is a stay-at-home mom to their 2-year-old daughter. I think my niece was at Bree's mom's house that day. Bree agreed to take me to my appointment, and the surgery went fine. Bree waited in the lobby for me to be done. When I came out of anesthesia, I was very disoriented and nauseous, which I guess is normal. I had gauze shoved in my mouth to stop any bleeding, and Bree took me to her car after I was let go. I don't really remember much of the drive, but it felt like not enough time had passed before Bree got out of the car and told me to come with her. I was really out of it and just followed her because the alternative was staying in the hot car. Long story short, we were at a pool. I was really confused. But once we were through the gate, Bree basically parked me at one of those little tables with the benches and said she'd be back in a while. I was still trying not to spew my guts out because I was really dizzy from the 90-degree heat and the medication, so I asked her to take me home. But she wouldn't. I guess since it was her day off and she didn't have my niece, she was meeting friends at the pool. I was starting to feel really sick and on the verge of passing out or having a panic attack, so I called my brother. I don't think he could understand me because the meds and the stuff in my mouth, because he hung up. I guess he then called Bree because she came stomping back over, cussing and yelling at me, then took me back to the car. I passed out on the drive home, but when we arrived, my brother had left work and met us in the driveway. He was screaming at Bree, and she started crying. I was still pretty disoriented, but my brother took me back home and stayed with me until the meds wore off. That's when he told me that he's divorcing Bree because of what she did, plus some other things he didn't go into detail about. It's been a few days since then, and Bree has been blowing up my phone, telling me what a biscuit I am and how my tattling destroyed her family. Part of me feels bad because of my niece, and I wonder if I should have just dealt with it and waited for her to be done at the pool, instead of calling my bro and causing problems. Am I the jerk? Heck no! And the fact that you even think you might be the jerk is the real issue. First of all, OP's brother basically said he had other reasons for divorcing Bree. This was clearly a long time coming. If it hadn't been this issue that tipped the scales, it would have been something else. Second, this woman really thought she could take advantage of the original poster because she didn't expect a sweet, sedated 19-year-old to stick up for herself. That's deplorable. I'm so over grown adults who talk about tattling. These people won't hesitate to get a person fired over an 11-year-old tweet, but in all other circumstances, they want to pretend there's something childish about holding a person accountable. And as for the niece, she'll be fine. It's sweet that OP doesn't want her niece growing up as a child of divorce, but that's honestly better than the alternative. These two staying together won't make the home any less broken. It'll just expose the child to more fighting. And if OP's worried about her brother's custody rights, have him tell the judge he's worried his daughter might have to get her wisdom teeth out one day. That'll shut Bree up real quick. My mother yells at my wife for eating crackers because she's angry that she didn't abort me while she had the chance. We currently live with my mom and are saving like heck to get out. Unfortunately, we had some huge setbacks, and she was our only option. My mom and my wife do not get along at all. At one point, while they were together shopping for wedding dresses, my mom implied my wife was fat. I lost my mind on her, to the point that she was almost uninvited to the wedding. That wasn't the end of the issue. About 3 months ago, my mom and I got into a huge fight on my mom's birthday. She had a bunch of people over to celebrate. When I came home, I had intended to go straight to my room. My aunt gave me an attitude about it, saying that I should stay and socialize. I asked my mom if that was what she wanted, and she said no. My mom brought up that she had previously asked if I could spend more time with her without my wife being around. I refused, since this would be at times when she still got to be with her husband and everyone else would be allowed to have someone as well. So she said that she doesn't want to spend any special occasions with me ever again. I muttered that she was such a B-word, and she responded that now she sees why everyone pressured her not to keep me. I told her that she chose to keep me, so she isn't a victim, and I told her that nobody feels bad for her. She started yelling about how, if she could have predicted things getting this way, she wouldn't have kept me at all. She hasn't spoken to me since. She told me and my wife to figure out our own food, and that we weren't allowed to touch anything she cooked. This applies to both of us. Honestly, it's hard, because we don't feel comfortable in her kitchen now, and we get a bit jealous because their food is amazing, but we've been figuring it out. My stepsister and her boyfriend visited the other day, and my mom ordered everyone food from a fancy steakhouse except for me and my wife. I know my wife was peeved about that, and I totally get it. My mom has been baking a bit more often recently and making things for her husband. She made fudge and some amazing looking cake, then encouraged his mom to take some of it home because they weren't going to finish it. And even then, she wouldn't let us touch it. The final straw was yesterday, when my mom saw my wife eating some crackers. She yelled at my wife that she paid for those crackers and to get away from them. My wife came to me in tears and said my mom was fat-shaming her. I said I didn't feel that she was, because I'm not allowed to eat anything either. I said that my mom was just not speaking to us due to the fight. My wife argued that purposefully bringing sweets around and offering them to everyone but her is fat-shaming. But I tried to tell her that my mom is allowed to eat what she wants. Since my mom is currently ignoring us, I really don't think this is about weight. Now my wife is mad at me. Your whole family sucks, OP. You suck, your mom sucks, and I'm not sure I feel that bad for your chunky wife either. Let's break it down. Your wife and your mother have pretty much hated each other since before you were married. This allegedly came from fat-shaming. However, since it's now been clearly illustrated that your wife overreacts to unrelated issues, we have no idea if that story about the dress shopping is even true. Even if it is, she's using it for extra sympathy when it isn't warranted, which is disgusting. Your mother, who hates your wife, is still allowing the woman to live in her house rent-free. In return, she wanted you, her son, to spend some time with her without a woman who will make your quality time feel combative. You refused and cursed at the woman who, again, is letting you live rent-free because neither you nor your wife is capable of supporting yourselves. But heaven forbid the woman doesn't respond to your lack of gratitude by baking you fudge and buying you steaks. Maybe you'd feel less uncomfortable in her kitchen if you contributed more food to it. Of course, the mom is still out of line for what she said. So much so that some commenters think she's probably treated her son badly most of his life. but not so badly that he had a problem with freeloading off of her while trying to skip her birthday. Nobody in this house is good for each other. Nobody in this house is nice to each other. Either OP needs to move out of his own accord, or his mother needs to kick him to the curb. You can only have so many terrible people under one roof. But maybe there's more to the issue. Is there a detail we missed? Let us know in the comments who you think the jerk is in this situation. Click one of the videos on screen right now.